Hi guys, my name is Tanya and this is my February wrap up. So I read 4 books in the month of February, which works out as a book a week, which is pretty good. That's what I'm aiming for this year, but it also seems really underwhelming because I felt like I read a lot more than that. And looking at what I'm currently reading, it turns out that I started a lot of books in February, I just didn't finish them. So watch this space and maybe March will be a little more impressive. So the first book that I finished in February was Our Own Private Universe by Robin Talley. I actually filmed a full-length review for that, so I will leave a link for it floating around in the ether somewhere. And in this story we follow 15-year-old Aki Simmons as she goes off on a youth group mission trip to Mexico, whilst also hoping to maybe meet a girl as she is bisexual but has only so far dated guys. Overall, I pretty much enjoyed this book. There is some great stuff about female-female sexual relationships and some good discussions about different sexual orientations, but there's also some potentially really poor representation in this book. And I'm going to post a couple of links down below to people that have reviewed this book a lot more critically than I did. I found them really interesting and really eye-opening. So there's one YouTube video by Christina Marie and then a Goodreads review that goes into a lot of detail about multiple different issues in this book, from writing through to representation. The more I look back on this book, the more I realise that I read it in relation to having just read a very fluffy female-female camp romance. And actually over the period of a month I've realised that the fluffy little romance that wasn't setting out to be this big important book has impacted me a lot more than the book that was being marketed as something that was going to be almost a game changer. So at the time I rated it 3.5 out of 5 stars, but in retrospect I'm thinking of it as more of a 3-star read, as I did prefer the other book, which was Keeping Her Secret by Sarah Nichols. The next book that I read was This Savage Song, which is the first book in a duology by V.E. Schwab. I am obsessed with Schwab's writing just from her Shades of London series. I'm currently reading A Conjuring of Light and oh my gosh. And I have yet to read any of her other books, but oh my gosh, this book did not disappoint. This story transports us to the divided V City where violence has literally begun to breed monsters. And here we meet Kate Harker, who wants to be seen as ruthless, like her father who runs the North City, controlling the monsters while citizens pay for his protection. On the other hand, we have August Flynn, who wants to be a good person, like his father, who runs the South City using a police task force to protect people from the monsters. However, August isn't even human. He's a Sunai, which is the rarest of the 3 types of monsters that exist in V City, and can literally steal a person's soul using music. So naturally, these 2 characters are thrown together and that is our story. Before reading this, my main concern was that Kate was going to be this 2-dimensional wannabe bad girl who is just doing bad things and getting kicked out of schools for the sake of it. And then that really wasn't the case. Through the novel we see her background, her home life and her relationship with her father and how that impacts who she is as a person. And actually Schwab does this amazing job of kind of scratching the surface and showing you what's underneath and why she is the way she is, but also who she is underneath all of that as well. And I found both Kate and August in their own ways to be really empathetic characters. And not only that, Schwab has this way of making you worry about all of her characters, not even just the protagonists but other side characters as well, and this book kept me on a knife edge throughout. And there are things that I want to know that might not be answered in the second book, like how did this happen? Where did the monsters start coming from? What was it like before? What is the rest of this universe like? But whatever happens in the next book, this story is gripping with or without that information, and I am super duper excited for the next book, and I rated this 5 out of 5 stars. Next up, I read volume 5 of the Lumberjanes, Band Together. As pretty much anyone who has met me or been in a general proximity to me can tell you, I am obsessed with the Lumberjanes. And although I'm still obviously completely biased, I did adore volume 5. Not only does it relate the adorable and hilarious origin story of the Roanoke Cabin's crew, it also features a band of mermaids, a literal rock band made of mermaids. The thing that I really love about reading the bind-ups of this comic is how each volume focuses on one person or a particular dynamic within the camp, but we still see all of our main Roanoke girls throughout the story, and there's one big adventure that arcs over each bind-up. So in this volume we see a lot more of April and Ripley, who are both adorable and enthusiastic in their own ways, which ends up with this overriding message in the volume about making time for the things that your friends want to do as well as what you want to do. Even if you think they'll enjoy it, just making sure that you check in with them on what they want to do. This volume was just silly good fun, and it also has all of these little tidbits for each character that you kind of see in like the backgrounds of animations and stuff like that, that had me internally and externally screaming about how much they make my heart melt. lot. So I rated this volume 5 out of 5 stars again. And the final book that I finished in the month of February was A Stolen Crown by Kelsey Keating, and I received an e-version of this from NetGalley in return for an honest review. First off, this is the second book in Keating's Stolen Royals series, and I haven't read the first book, but this did seem to stand up pretty well on its own anyway. Although I believe there are some character tie-ins, I don't think that reading the first book would have affected how I felt overall about this book. In this story, we follow Princess Cecily as she travels to a new land in order to marry the prince to whom she is betrothed. Her best friend Rory, who is a girl blessed or cursed with immense strength, comes along with her as her bodyguard slash lady-in-waiting in disguise, and they are also accompanied by a host of courtiers. So between a missing prince, a charming twin brother, a kidnapping, and multiple secrets, this plot has plenty of intrigue in it. But the main conclusion I drew about this book was that it couldn't help getting bogged down in itself. Sometimes the amount of dialogue made it really confusing to know who was talking. The number of characters that would weigh in on a situation often meant that I wasn't quite sure who was who, and because this story focuses on the princess moving to a new land, there was this preoccupation with making sure that we were being told when someone was speaking in a different language, or what language was being spoken, or what X meant in X language, that got very cross-confusing. I think what I'm trying to say is that most of the time there was a lot going on and it was really difficult to keep track of. There were things that I did really appreciate about Cecily's character. As a woman whose future is dependent on the opinion of a man that she's never met, she becomes very preoccupied with her appearance and also her personality to some extent, but it leads to some really good conversations about body image and taking care of yourself. And her best friend Rory is a very petite figure, and they kind of weigh in from both sides of the conversation, from the very small woman to the larger woman. It was just nice that there were characters rationally talking about these things and shooting down comments that were body shaming. Cecily was also capable of being very selfish, and she did learn about that over the course of the book and worked on improving herself, which I thought was really cool. So at the end of the day, this book was a fun romp with plenty of kick-ass ladies involved. It was just written in a way that I found really hard to connect to. I rated it 2.5 stars, and I'll post my full-length Goodreads review down below. So yeah, that was my February wrap-up. I hope that you enjoyed it. Let me know down below if you've read any of these books and what you thought of them. I hope that you're all having a really great day, and I will see you all again very soon. Goodbye!